Tom, you got to start coming on recruiting trips with me, man. That's awesome. So, critical thinking school, right? I didn't think it would make sense to write a speech, right? Because that's not critical thinking. So I took some notes in my car this morning, and that I could spit off of. But I can't tell you how honored I am to be here. To President Cloudwalls, thank you so much for all you do for this college. I'm certainly grateful to all faculty and alum, to the Board of Trustees, for everyone that pours so much into this school. It means the world to me. And when the honor was bestowed, I wouldn't miss it. This place means a lot. I'm really proud to be a Cardinal. And words really can't explain that. Can't explain how proud I am to be here. And my mom was a graduate of William Jewell, so I guess I was destined to come here. But this moment is really fun and special for me. So like I said, I didn't really write a speech, but I want to share a couple thoughts. It started this morning. Critical thinking started early. I realized I put on my white shirt and it didn't have buttons, right? So I needed cufflinks. I didn't have cufflinks, so I critically thought and rolled my sleeves all the way up. So my white sleeves are around my biceps right now, and that's where it started. But what I'll probably talk on today, what I thought means something to me, is really the DNA traits of our program at Oregon and how that kind of correlates to my journey and my time here at Jewell. So I'll start with those 4 DNA traits: connection, growth, toughness, and sacrifice. And those were things we got when I got to Oregon. One of the very first things I did is I asked our team to write down our greatest strengths and our greatest weaknesses. And one thing that really stuck out is our greatest strength and our greatest weakness was the same thing, and that was connection, brotherhood. And what I realized is, 1, we have a confused team, but 2, we have a team that connection and brotherhood mean a lot to. And that's really where I'll start my journey here at Jewell, with connection. I remember my first time coming to Jewell from Richmond, Missouri. I just got signed to play football here, and I was coming up in the summer to start training. And I met a couple classmates in the Mabee Center, and we're playing pickup basketball, and that was kind of the beginning of my path here to Jewell, meeting some of those guys. One of those guys was our quarterback, Benny Palmer, who now is a high school coach here in Kansas City. But that connection, speaking of connections, led to a better connection. Benny started working at Outback Steakhouse, right? I know you're like, where's this going? So Benny said, hey, it's a great job. We can do it outside of football. It'll be an opportunity for us to work. So I started working at Outback Steakhouse. And then that's where I met my wife, Sophia. She was a to-go girl. I was a server. And I think that's really where recruiting started for me. So I've had a lot of jobs. Almost every job, the first thing I do is I show a picture of my wife and I say, see, I can recruit. It's kind of worked out. So connection. Connection's important. I didn't always have a ton of connections. One of the connections I'm really proud of is that there's 3 gentlemen in the back of the room that are part of this group. Well, I was at Jewell. I don't know if this is against the rules or not. We kind of started our own fraternity. I won't name what the fraternity was. It wasn't a real fraternity. But we had a lot of fun. Our fraternity was really the football team. My brother's on the team. We were really close, really close. And those guys are still my best friends today. I had to put my phone on Do Not Disturb while I was up here this morning, because knowing them, they definitely would have called. We have an email chain that ever since we left here, we call ourselves the Jewell 9. And ever since we left here, that email chain has something on it every day. And now we kind of have a text thread going. Some of us old guys even have Snapchat, you know, so you guys are like, what? Yeah, we got Snapchat. Not everybody's on that. Most frustrating thing, most of us have iPhones. My friend Nick, he has an Android, so it's a green message. And we just all acknowledge that that's, yeah. So, for those of you that don't have an iPhone, it's so frustrating when your message comes across green. I just want to express that. But, my connection with my teammates here. Jewell 9, every summer, probably over the last 6 years, we go on a trip. And it might be Florida, it might be Lake of the Ozarks. Last summer it was Tahoe. And that connection, that friendship, that brotherhood is something that's extremely special to me. My wife's rolling her eyes right now. She's like, man, when you get with your college friends. No, I'm just kidding. So, no, we have we have a wonderful connection, and my family is a huge part of that connection. My boys, 2 of them are really struggling staying awake right now. They got to hang out with their cousins last night, and some of them know, one thing I learned at Jewel is you got to be able to hoot with the Owls and soar with the Eagles. And these guys are struggling; they can't do both. But on to the next thing, growth. So one thing that I think is really unique about the bamboo plant, the bamboo tree. Some people might not realize this, but you'll water a bamboo tree for 5 years before it breaks ground. Right? So every day you'll water it, and it doesn't break ground. And then once it breaks ground, 5 years later, it'll grow 90 feet in 5 weeks. So it's exponential growth, but the reality is for 5 years, you never see it break the surface. You never really see that growth take place. And for a lot of my career, I'd say with the same thing. You pour a lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into what you love, and you don't always see the fruits of your labor. I've said before, everybody wants the baby, nobody wants the labor pains. Right? I don't really understand what that looks like, but my wife certainly does. But that's been our job. And when you talk about growth, I think it's important that everybody understands it's important to fail. I failed a lot, a ton in my life. Some of my roommates will remember at one point I was always trying something new. I wanted to be innovative, somewhat business savvy, whether it was starting a lawn mowing business while I was coaching or working for this company. Some of you may have heard of. It's called Quickstar. The reality is it's just a pyramid scheme, and I didn't know that at the time, but I was all in. And my roommates would tell you I was all in. So I would come home and I'd have boxes of toothpaste and condensed milk, and I'm trying to convince these guys, you gotta get in. This thing is about to take off. And you know what? It didn't. But I worked really hard at it, and worked really hard at that and a lot of other things in my life, and eventually that bamboo plant broke ground. It wasn't 8 years ago, and I'll hop into sacrifice a little bit later, but it wasn't 8 years ago that we didn't have insurance, that my wife and our family made all types of sacrifices for us to be successful, and now we're seeing the fruits of our labor, and we've certainly grown like a bamboo plant after the seed broke ground. I would tell you, to maximize growth, you have to avoid being comfortable. And there's been a lot of times in my career where I've avoided being comfortable. I didn't pick the easy situation. I certainly didn't pick the situation that created the most financial gain. I picked opportunity. I always looked for opportunity. Both my parents were teachers, and I wanted to follow their path. I'm a lifelong learner. I think Jewel really taught me that. And I always look for opportunities for growth. And really my mentor, one of my mentors now at the University of Oregon is Phil Knight. And if anybody has an opportunity, I don't read a ton of books anymore, I'll be honest, but I do like audiobooks. So I feel like that's kind of a cheat code for you guys that aren't readers. You can pick up an audiobook, great audiobook. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that here or not. Great audiobook is Shoe Dog, and it's really the story of Phil Knight. And in that book, Phil graduates with a master's degree from Stanford. And then he goes and explains to his dad, hey, I want to go sell shoes out of the back of my car. Right? And that was risk. And that wasn't the easy opportunity, but he was all in, he was invested, and that opportunity obviously led to success. The next thing I'll talk about is toughness. In my life, I've got to experience a lot of things. I think immediately when you talk about football and you think about toughness, you think about closing on counter, making a tackle, the physicality of the game. But really what I want to focus on is mental toughness. In our family, we got hit with an opportunity to really face some true mental toughness. In my career, I made a lot of selfish decisions and decisions to really advance my career without a lot of thought to my family. I was very ambitious. I wanted to coach the best of the best. I wanted to coach at the highest level. And my wife was along for that journey from the beginning to the end. But we hit a real fork in the road when I first became a coach in Memphis. And my wife calls me. She was dealing with some serious pain in her knee. I remember telling her to take some Tylenol. She'll be fine. Turns out I was a jerk. Right? She wasn't fine. We found out that she was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a rare form of bone cancer. Since that moment, my wife's she has a prosthetic leg, and not completely. Well, how do you word that? Yeah, she had surgery. Yeah. So, not very elegant, but went through chemo treatment. She is one of the strongest people I know, if not the strongest person I know. And that made me refocus my attention. You know, we talk about people in our position, and the reality is what gets you there is your why, right? And my why changed in 2016 when my wife became sick. My why became my wife and my boys. And since then, my career has absolutely taken off. And I think one thing people have to recognize is for you to be successful in life, you can still make the main thing the main thing. And you'll be rewarded beyond measure. And toughness is exemplified every single day. I see my wife get up and help raise these 3 boys, and the fact that she's here with us today, so I'm very grateful for that. The last thing I'll talk about is sacrifice, and I've really already hit on it. When I talk about sacrifice with our team, I talk about a safe. And the reason I talk about a safe is you have to take something of value to be successful in life, and you have to sacrifice it. You have to put it in that safe, whether that's your time, whether that's your friends, whether that's money, whether that's staying up late, whatever that might be, you have to sacrifice something to get what you want. And my family's experienced that sacrifice. I've certainly experienced that sacrifice. I have an 11-year-old now. He's I think he's asleep here in the 3rd row. But I have an 11-year-old. When we moved to Eugene, he was 10, and he lived in 8 states. That's sacrifice. Our family sacrificed a lot for us to be where we're at today. And again, I think one of the biggest things is we never really chased the dollar. We always chased opportunity. And those sacrifices have now paid off. But one thing I'll challenge you with, as you are here at Jewel and you look forward to future aspirations, I'll ask you, are your habits of today on par with your dreams of your future? Because the reality is, for me to be standing here on this stage, it required a lot of habits. It required a dedication to purpose and what I wanted to accomplish in my life and what my family wanted to accomplish in my life. And those habits, well, they certainly have grown and changed over time, but they certainly weren't part of my dreams and aspirations of tomorrow. And I challenge you to do the same thing. You know, some of us ate breakfast this morning, right? And there's a lot of pieces that are involved in breakfast, but what I would ask in your walk of life is, are you interested or are you obsessed? And the reason I talk about breakfast is I reference breakfast. You know, the chicken, right, when he makes the egg, or she, I guess, right, makes the egg. Yeah. Not a lot of science classes here. I was a PE major. So when the chicken makes the egg, that chicken, you know, it's involved in breakfast. But that pig that makes the bacon, he's committed. Right? And I would tell you, as you approach your future career, and you approach future relationships, and you approach your life, are you involved or are you committed? I'm so grateful that I got to be here at William Jewell College and got to be committed to a cause that was greater than me, and certainly committed to a cause that's greater today. So thank you all. Very honored to be here. I appreciate it.